Yay, hello YouTube. We're back at the workbench with my co-host Cornflakes, who's a bit sleepy here. And what I want to do today is I want to apply new heat sinks to this card. This is a Radeon 9600 XT. It's a really nice card. I got really good scores on 3D Mark in Windows XP. But as you can see, someone has put an aftermarket cooler on it, which has a standard mainboard connector. And that's really stupid because you have to connect it to the mainboard or some other cable, like for example this an adapter like this one, and it's just useless because it won't work any better. So what I'm going to do, I ordered this little heatsink from China and it was really cheap. I'll put the prices and a link to the store in the description of this video. But yeah, I want to install this one and then also apply these heat sinks to the RAM chips, because when I benchmarked this card, I realized that what's really holding the 9600 XT back, it's not the core clock itself, but it's mostly limited by the memory clock. So I hope that with the heat sinks on the memory I can squeeze out just a little bit more. So first we gotta remove the old cooler, and it's just held in place by these plastic thingies, and you remove them quite easily by just using pliers and pushing them together, and then they snap out. So in this case it's really easy, and there it goes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the GPU itself and also all the RAM chips with this. I'm using nail polish remover, which contains acetone, and that's the deciding factor. That's why I used it. Maybe you can see here in the ingredients list. No, it's not gonna focus, but it contains acetone, and that's a really good solvent. You can use it for a lot of electronic stuff. I just put it on this Q-tips, as we call them, and it removes thermal paste or residue. As you can see, there goes the thermal compound. It's really good for cleaning stuff. You only have to be very careful when you with plastics or paint, because it basically melts ABS plastic, and it also can eat away paint really easily. So yeah, if you have something that's painted or plastic parts, be very careful not to get it on there, or if you get it on there, then remove it really quickly. I'm also going to clean the RAM chips, and that's because these heatsinks, they come with an adhesive layer on the back, And to make that stick really good, we want to have a really clean surface to put them on. And as you can see on this Q-tip, there's quite some dirt coming off. So yeah, it also has memory chips on the back. I'm going to clean all of them because if we just glue the heat sinks basically onto the dirt, then the thermal contact will not be ideal, and also they might just fall off. So what I'm gonna do is I'll basically just keep cleaning them off, and you see there's a lot of dirt coming off of there, and I'm just going to keep cleaning them over and over until there's no more dirt to come off. But usually 1 or 2 wipes should be enough to remove all of the dirt. And that's always whenever you want to glue something. It's always a good idea, if possible, to use acetone or alcohol to clean it before. Yeah, I think that should be fine. So now there's barely anything on the Q-tip, so it'll be fine. So, and believe it or not, but we're almost done already. What I need now is some thermal compound, and I know I've got that somewhere here. There it is. And yeah, I'm not using anything really special here. This is just some cheap silicone paste. You can get really fancy ones, but I don't think it's going to make a big difference for this GPU. And as I said, the GPU itself is not a limiting factor, so overclocking that is, on this card, not really very useful. I just gotta think about how I want to run the cable, but I think I'll put it in that way. And what you do is you can see these 2 tabs and the holes in the PCB, and I'll just put them on there, and then they're spring loaded, so it just push them in, and that's it. And of course, if you want to do something like this, you have to be careful to get the right one with the right connector for your card. So there we go. No more stupid cables hanging around in the case. Of course, this cable is a bit too long as well, but nowhere near as bad as it was before. So I'll just kind of squeeze it in here so it stays fixed. And there we go. That's the GPU cooler done. And now let's get to these. And as you can see, they come with adhesive. They're just simple copper blocks, basically. And these are all really cheap. It was less than 10 euro for all of that, so yeah, it's really worth a try. And as you can maybe see, they don't fit perfectly. They're a bit too narrow, but it's going to be better than nothing. Basically, if you have no heatsink at all, then everything you can put on there is an improvement. So I just carefully peel off the protective layer here. And you really want to be sure that all of the acetone has dried off, and try not to touch it before applying the heatsink. And also take a look and make sure you put it centered. It's not so much that it matters in terms of thermal performance, but it would just look stupid if it was like not straight or not centered. For most adhesives, it's useful if you push on it to make it stick better. Sadly, my Windows XP machine is not ready right now, so I will not be able to show a benchmark. But this is just for demonstration of how you can do this. What you have to look for when you want to basically upgrade GPU with new heatsinks, you will want to measure the size of the chips and make sure that your heatsinks are the same size or maybe a bit smaller like these. But you don't want them larger, because as you can see here, there's components right next to the chips, and you really don't want to accidentally short anything on the card, so better go with smaller ones than the bigger ones. And this is really easy with the pre-applied thermal adhesive. Just stick them in place, and that's it. Now for the back side. This one has already been in place, and I don't actually know what's underneath it. But I doubt that it will make a big difference. But with these memory heatsinks, there are quite a lot of copper. If it wants to zoom, you see they're quite massive actually. So yeah, I might be able to just squeeze out a few more megahertz of the memory, and that will improve the performance much more than overclocking the core, basically. You can also find really nice bigger GPU coolers on eBay, but I had no chance to use them on this board because the GPU is kind of low near the bus, and the upper side is completely used by these large capacitors. So the larger heatsinks wouldn't fit on here. And I had even played around in my head with the idea of just desoldering these capacitors and putting them on the back of the card so I could put on a larger cooler, but then I decided not to do it because, as I said, the benchmarks showed me that the GPU isn't a limiting factor. It's just the RAM limiting it, so I decided that I don't want to do all that work for very little, if any, benefit at all. But I'd rather put on these RAM heatsinks because I will have a nice airflow in the case, so they will help quite a bit. And originally, without any heatsinks, I could push the memory to like 250 megahertz, and it wasn't really stable at 266, but I might get 266 stable with these. So there we go. New heatsink on. 8 memory heatsinks applied. And that's all we need. Just give them a good squeeze. Make sure they're on there. And now I'm curious to see if this thing is loud at all. So I'll pull out the board that it's going to go in. And this is as you can maybe see, it is the Elite Group K7 S5A. A really nice board that brings nostalgic feelings to me because I have this exact board, not this very one, but another K7 S5A was in my first PC that I built for myself, and it was a Duron 800 back then. And I'm pretty sure that these RAM coolers, so this is DDR1 memory, and these heat spreaders on there, they were aftermarket. I bought them separately, and I think they're coming out of my original Duron. So I have these heat spreaders for like 20 years, and they're really nice. You can just remove these clips, and once you remove the clip, you can just pull them apart, and they fit everything from SD RAM up to you could even put these on DDR4 memory because the form factor is still the same. So yeah, but I'm putting them on here. Back in the days when I had a Duron running on this board, I could only dream of having something like the Radeon 9600. So now I need something to get the board a bit higher. So I'm going to use this. And that's just because I want to plug in this GPU here. And I have already done some modding on this board, and I'm going to basically replace all these capacitors. You can spot this one, this black one doesn't match the others, and that was really bulging, so I replaced it just in case to not ruin anything. So let's turn it like this so you can see the cooler, and plug in a cable. Grab a power supply. And I don't have an operating system ready. I'm not going to do any real testing. I just want to see if the fan spins and if it's any loud. So that's all I'm going to do. Just fire it up. Grab a keyboard so I can get into the BIOS. But even that shouldn't be necessary even. So yeah, switch the PSU on. And now I just need some piece of metal, and on this board everything is nicely labeled, so I just have to short out these two buttons, pins. Oh, yeah, what you can hear is the fan of the power supply, so that's not good at all. I'll be right back. I'll cut this part out, but I'll grab another power supply because this just sucks ass. I'll have to replace that someday. Yeah, that's a problem. When you're collecting old hardware, inevitably you get stuff like this. But that's not a real problem. We'll just use a different one and hope that this one is not so excruciatingly loud. There we go. Let me just so yeah, so it's clearly audible. It's not exactly quiet, but it works. And it's blowing a lot of air. I can really feel it up here. So I guess even though it's a small heatsink, the cooling of it will be really nice. It really pushes a lot of air. And now I hit my finger in it. But yeah, it seems to be working. And of course it's not producing much heat right now because it's just sitting there displaying the BIOS screen. But yeah, these getting a little bit warm. Not those up here, of course, because they're getting blasted with air. But these down here, a little bit, but not really. So yeah, I'm quite satisfied with the outcome. Even though this fan is a little bit on the loud side, I might, because this card doesn't have any fan control, so I might go ahead and just cut the wire somewhere and put a little resistor in there to lower the RPM a little bit. But that's basically it. That's all I wanted to show you. So if you want to upgrade an old graphics card with new better cooling. It's really cheap and easy. Everyone can do this. It's a job that's taking just a few minutes, and as I said, I'll post a link to the eBay store in the description. They have tons of GPU and RAM and general purpose heat sinks, basically all you can think of, all sizes, colors, all variants. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show. Bye.